Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Kevin coming to you with a video version of the community group leader interest meeting. There are some of you that weren't able to make it to the physical meeting that we had, but let me start by just saying thank you. Thank you for wanting to be a part of the community work that a church is. I wanted to go through some simple things. This is a brochure that we handed out at that meeting, and I kind of wanted to just go through the simple aspects of it. I will include this in the message that I send you as well. But again, I want to thank you for just opening yourselves up to that opportunity. To get started, though, inside here there are four core elements that we believe exist in community groups in general. They are quite simple. There's fellowship, Bible, prayer, and worship. And that may seem like, okay, some of those I'm a little uncomfortable with, or that type of thing, and that's okay. Not every single meeting of a group necessarily does all of these really well. It's not always the same balance and that type of thing. But I wanted to give you an idea that when you come together as a group, what makes you different than just friends that don't know Jesus coming together? What is it that they do, that you do, that's different than that? Deep in the soul of every human is this idea and a desire to want to be in community, want to be with others, want to be known, right, by others. And I think that's deep within all of us. But our meeting, our coming together, it typically includes these elements, right? There's this idea of fellowship, which just about everyone knows how to do. There's prayer, which is we're in essence making sure we're coming to our King with things for ourselves and for the group in general and for outside of our group as well. There's scripture, right? There's the Bible. We want to kind of focus everything. We need an anchor point. We need something that actually would show us what wisdom truly is, show us what life truly is, so that we're formulating a Christian worldview, a lens through which we see everything else. And the gospel is at the center of that. So that typically is at the center. And then, of course, worship. I I do think that some of you might be thinking traditional small group wise that you need to have a minstrel, right? You got someone who breaks out the guitar and someone on a tambourine in your small group, and that works. That's fine. That's probably more on the traditional side, but there are other ways to worship. There are some of you that may not be musically inclined. Maybe you don't feel like you sing very well, and that's okay. Singing is worship, but doesn't have to be that. So, for example, sometimes it's incredibly worshipful as a group in a directed way to simply stop and say, we're going to spend the next 3 to 5 minutes in silence. And here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about the majesty of God, the fact that he exists in just pure light, and he is so good, so majestic, and the fact that his son is the one who saved us. And you can just take that. And it's not prayer. It's just something where you take a moment to just think about the majesty and the fact that you were invited into his kingdom. He invites you personally. He has made a way for you through his blood, that type of thing. So you see that there are different ways of worship. There are some of you that may enjoy running or cycling or hiking, and in some ways, each one of those can be worshipful as well. Like, let's say you have a group and you're a hiking group, and all you do is you spend time where you actually set aside, you do some prayer. Maybe you choose to read a scripture before you go out on your hike or your biking, and then you talk about it a little bit along the hike. You pray for each other. You figure out what's going on in each other's lives, right? You can embed all four of these elements into different groups than just what you might think traditionally is a small group. What we want to do is foster community. That's a place where iron sharpens iron, where we together can call each other out on things. We can learn more about each other. We can understand each other's stories and how these stories can come together and actually give glory to God. So I hope that makes sense. Now, there are probably three major objections that most people have. If you're listening to this right now, you've kind of thrown you've jumped into the shallow end and said, yeah, maybe I can do this. But there are three things that typically keep people from doing that. One is time. I don't have enough time. busyness in our schedules is something that's rampant in the West, especially in the United States, especially in places like the Bay Area, right? Where we are driven by the drumbeat of business and efficiency and so forth. And some of that's okay, but some of it's not. And what I'm hoping is that you are deciding that, like, no, this is a worthwhile part of my time. This is a managing my time into good things and better things. So I'd ask you to consider that would putting aside a few hours a week be a good thing to do? Would it be a kingdom-oriented thing? Second objection, well, I'm just not a leader. I'm like, okay, that's true. Some of us do lead naturally and some of us do not. But I want you to consider that when we're talking about community groups, what leading really is listening very well and managing dialogue and conversation in directions. Sometimes it's stopping from going down rabbit trails. Sometimes it's deciding, hey, this week someone had a very bad thing happen to them. So all we're going to do, we're going to put aside this and we're just going to pray for them. So you see, leading is somewhat more, think of it as kind of being the GPS for the group, for that group. And it's really important that we do that, right? We need to direct it. So that's the kind of leading we're talking about. You don't need to be William Wilberforce. You don't need to be the President of the United States in the leading sense. You need to be someone who facilitates conversation and creates an environment, a soil, so to speak, so that good things can grow out of it. Okay, and then the third thing, I'm not qualified. Right? I don't know enough about this. I don't feel like I know enough Bible. I don't feel like I know enough about how to actually counsel people and that type of thing. You know what? You're probably right. Right? It's the truth. I'm not necessarily qualified for some of the things that I'm asked to do. And this is one of those things where it takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of encouragement to jump in and say, well, I'm okay with that, and I'm willing to say I don't know when I don't know is true. One of the problems that the human heart has is we don't want to look dumb. We want to look like we know our stuff, and that can often lead us down paths that are not good. Maybe we're leading people astray. Maybe, you can understand where this can go. So part of it is just being humble and saying, I'm okay with saying I don't know. But here's the big thing, is the pastorate is available to you. I just had a conversation with Greg Quirk, and we're like, hey, we've dealt with this already, where sometimes there's been small groups where something's gone wrong, or there's been conflict, or maybe people who were not happy with the church, they felt jilted or something. And we would get involved and help and try to, apologize, try to get in and help fix it, help be there to supplement what you're doing each and every week, right? Every time you meet together, sometimes you hit things that you don't know what to deal with. But the one way of dealing with it is finding people that have, and then you can learn the next time something like this happens, you might be more empowered to do so. So we're here for you. Part of the whole intent of this is for us to work with you complementarily so that we can help you into this job, facilitate you, train you, give you what you need. And that may be different depending on who you are and how much of this you've done, if you've not done it at all. So I want to encourage you that that's not some giant barrier. The one thing we would ask is we want leaders to be members of the church. Part of that is simply we want to know that you have submitted to the authority of the local church. If you haven't done that, then to be honest, we don't feel like it's not like you've really said, yes, I'm part of this church family. So that's one of the things. And that's easy to do. All we would do is ask you to sit down with one of our pastors and kind of interview, and we talk about kind of your faith journey so far. And we talk about some of the things that the church is about so that you're clear on where we stand on certain items so that we all know where each other are. We're all on the same page. And we're asking you to say, no, I'm submitting. This is my family. This is my church family. As God has me in this place, this is where I'm going to be. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So there might be some questions that come up inside this document I send you. There's a ton of them, like about how often do we meet, how big should our group be, can I have other leaders involved, those type of things. And to be perfectly honest, I'm going to tell you, group size is kind of important. Sometimes groups get a little bit too big. I prefer smaller groups. I think you can do life better together in a smaller group. It allows you to get to know each other better. That's not to say you can't get bigger, but I think 12 and under is typically a good size of a group. Otherwise, it's just kind of hard, and people can hide in groups like that, and that requires you to be even better leader, right? The bigger it is, because you need to kind of ferret out those things that are happening that might be silence, right? You may have people that just don't participate, and you want to get to know them, and you want them to feel included and be included in that type of thing. As far as how often to meet, we're asking that you would really try to do weekly. There are some groups that meet every other week, and that's okay. The issue is simple. If you meet every other week and someone misses a meeting, that means you haven't seen them in a month, right? So that's like meeting someone 12 times a year. Do you know how close are you to people that you meet 12 times a year? It's just not very suitable for creating relationship and comfortability and trust and that type of thing. So if you meet weekly and someone is sick or a child's sick or they can't make it, well, you're going to see them in 2 weeks rather than a month. So you get where I'm going. So we would like you to do this once a week. It's always better. If you want a co-leader, that is a great idea. You should always be looking to build someone up, someone who can come alongside you. You might want to go on vacation. You may get sick. You may have a tough season at home or at work that makes it difficult for you to do a group on a given night. So you would share that effort with another couple or another person who can come alongside you, and you guys can kind of team lead a group. That's always a good idea. Let's see. Other things to consider. The fact that you don't feel qualified, you don't have to be in seminary to do this. You may actually try this and discover after a 4-week period, yeah, maybe this isn't for me. That's okay. I want you to know that is perfectly okay. Sometimes we need to put our lab coats on, try things, and determine if our gift mix actually is suitable for that. That's fine. And we wanted to tell you, we'd be the ones who would tell you to if we thought maybe this isn't the right thing for you. As Christians, we should be comfortable with the idea that the people around us, who we call brothers and sisters in the Lord, are able to speak into our lives and say, yeah, here's some things you're really, really good at. Here's some things that maybe you're not so good at. That's fine. The whole point is we are a church who comes together with different gift mix. I've used this term before, this metaphor before. A symphony. Symphony has people who play different instruments. The person who plays a violin can't walk over and play the oboe. It does not necessarily work that way. That's okay. You just need to figure out what instrument you play. And maybe this is the instrument. So I'm asking you, hey, put on your lab coat. So right now, what I'm hoping people would do is take the next 3 to 4 weeks to just try out leading a small group every week to take us through the series of Jude. Jude starts this Sunday, and it's we're gonna give you content. We're gonna give you a short video after you watch the service. You'll have a video that has just kind of starts dialogue and gives you some questions to go through. That way, it'll help you supplement the group. Usually, we give you a ton of questions. Do you have to go through them all? No, you just go through a few. Go pick them ahead of time. Think about them yourself, and then determine what makes sense to do. So, with all that said, I hope you would join me, and I want to make one last statement, and it has to do with the time that we're in. We need community more than ever right now. When you have shelter-in-place orders, you have people that aren't necessarily working like they would usually, you have people who've lost jobs, you have people that are doing homeschooling. Community is critical right now, but it's hard to do because we have rules. The state and the county authorities have given us a framework in which to work. So I want you to be paying attention to that framework. But more importantly, I want you to pay attention to the framework that Jesus has given us. If you read the Bible at all, if you read there's some aspects in the New Testament that tell us we are to treat the other as we would ourselves. In fact, we would not consider ourselves too highly, but think of the other person. We want to raise them up in our eyes. So whether you believe the pandemic is something that we're it's overblown, where everyone's being too serious about it, or whether you are someone who's very fearful for your kids getting sick or you getting sick, and you take all the precautions, wherever you land on this spectrum, you need to be thinking about the other. That's first and foremost. Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So at the core of our belief system is wanting to put the other ahead of ourselves, wanting to sacrifice ourselves, to absorb the cost of things on behalf of the other. And then people outside of us would know who we are by how we love. So you need to be thinking about the other, and you need to be paying attention to what our local authorities and the state authorities are asking us. So I hope that's not too much for you. I want you to know you can reach out to me at kevin@svccchurch.com. You can also call. I will send out a message that includes information about how to contact me. Otherwise, we want to get you connected, and I want to get people connected with you. So thank you again for jumping in and being interested. I pray that this would be an opportunity for both of us, all of us, to grow as a church family. Be blessed. I pray for you on this day that you'd have a blessed day. And again, know that you can reach out at any time. Thanks.